Every day in Iowa City, I see people in passing, and I think to myself,
I wonder who that person is.
Did he grow up here?
Or did he come for college and
end up staying
because he got a grant for his research?
Or maybe the love of his life.
As a townie, they
decide to raise their kids here.
In Iowa City,
today I see people every day.
And wonder,
what's her story?
And wonder what she does for a living.
I see her around.
Walking her dog.
Maybe she's the writer of
that book I loved so much.
Maybe she's a dancer.
A chef.
Iowa City
is interesting like that.
The guy sitting next to you on the bus
could be your new favorite singer. That lady who
held the door open for you.
Could be a filmmaker.
A politician.
I see people
every day and wonder.
What's your story?
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 It's your story. Chicago native Yale Cohn is a self-crafted raconteur, reflecting, often through satire, on all things Iowa City, through his Little Village articles, public appearances, and his PA-TV television show. Yale positions himself as a nonpartisan interlocutor, driven by his love for our city and a desire to present Iowa City with a universal resonance that people everywhere can recognize. On this episode of I See People, meet Iowa City's own Yale Cohn.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for sitting down with me here at the
Thanks for having me, Katie.
Yeah, I really enjoy reading your articles.
Thank you.
In the Little Village, and you've been writing for the Little Village for about a year. Started in 2009.
Yeah, well, my next article in November will be my 12th article. So yeah, a year exactly.
And you have a really distinct style to your writing, but what I really enjoy about your articles is that you have a pretty lighthearted way of directly poking fun at Iowa City and kind of having us look in the mirror a little bit.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's poking fun. I mean, I don't know if it, you know, I don't have a literature background, so the term, like, I don't know if it's satire or comedy, but it's all, I think, done from a place of love, because I certainly love this town. I'm happier here than anywhere else I've ever lived. But that, you know, it doesn't preclude me or anyone else from, you know, we're not so estimable that we can't, you know, take a joke or make a joke rather at ourselves. There's a lot of great things about this town. There's some things that are not so great, but I don't think I ever like lash out or, you know, I don't have a stentorian, you know, scolding tone. It's always, you know, and I think there's, you know, I certainly wouldn't put myself in the category of these folks, but there's always been, you know, from Twain to Mike Royko to Jimmy Breslin, to, you know, there's always been people who lived in a town, loved it, wrote about it, and oftentimes, you know, poked fun at it now and again when it was deserved. But it's always, you know, it's always from a place of love. So.
And I think that, you know, even though your writing is pretty Iowa City centric, people living elsewhere can look at this, your body of work that you've published in the last year, and can take it more like a Lake Wobegon. You know, this is sort of a look into a town and its quirks and its
absolutely
yeah.
whether that's people who have lived here or hopefully, you know, I hope, because that's a challenge of mine, that I am writing in a magazine in a town about a town, but I would hope that it would have a universal appeal, but a broader appeal, that it would just be good writing. If you were like in a bus stop in Portland and somebody was traveling through and they left a copy of Little Village, if they picked it up, I'd hope they'd enjoy the magazine, because I think it's a great magazine. I'm very happy to write for it. And I hope that they would, you know, if they snorted and, you know, spit a little coffee out because they laughed at something I wrote in a bus stop in Portland, then, you know, I think I've done my job. Whether they've never even heard of Iowa City, you know, which I never had heard of Iowa City really till I landed here.
So where are you from then?
I'm from Chicago. Grew up in Chicago.
Yeah.
So.
And it might be a long story, but how did you land here?
Oh, not atypical story, I think, for people who move around. I chased a girl out here. That didn't work out. I found another girl, was with her for a while. That didn't work out, but there's a lot of great women in this town, and I'm happy to keep trying to get it right. So.
Well, you did write a great and favorite article of mine about Iowa girls in the Little Village.
For Valentine's Day last year.
Yeah.
No, that was a lot of fun to write, and I got a lot of compliments on it. But it was, you know, I don't think I was being like saccharine or too terribly sentimental. I've gotten more sentimental as I've gotten older, but it was true. I really think, I mean, the caliber of you know, I sound, you know, being in an agricultural state, I sound like I'm here like at you know, like the state fair talking about, you know, prize this or prize, no, but I think women, they're uniquely grounded, needless to say, intelligent, glamorous, in their own way, you know.
I'll allow you to compliment
But
Iowa
yeah,
women.
no,
That's
I
fine.
mean, here we go. So, you know, prime candidate. The really neat thing about that article is when we did the roast at Prairie Lights, you know, people read my stuff, but you know, they don't know who I am. There's not a picture with any of our writers.
In the little village, they don't publish a photo
Yeah,
of anyone.
yeah. But after the roast, this one woman, she's probably in her 70s, and she said, "Oh, I really liked your piece that you wrote about Iowa women." Oh, thank you so much. She goes, and this shows, I think, you know, dedication, because it's not like us. We'd be like, "Hey, Katie, let me forward you this link." She's like, "I made a photocopy of it, and I mailed it to my daughter who lives in Ohio, who grew up in Iowa, and she really loved it. And then she made a copy of that and sent it to her friend who lived, I don't know, in Timbuktu, who had just also from Iowa, who just gotten over a divorce, and she read it and it really lifted her spirits and helped her get over her divorce." And I was like, wow, you know.
Well, that's the kind of thing a writer lives for.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
feedback
you know,
is wonderful.
like, you know, default therapy via the mails. I don't know. So, but that was really sweet to hear that, you know, I help. You know, again, I feel like I don't want to pat myself on the back, but even if it's just for a few hours, if I help somebody put a smile on their face or lift their spirits, then, you know, hey, great.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the roast. To the best of my knowledge, this was the first time that there's been an official roast of Iowa City. And the little village in, as part of the City of Literature celebration, you hosted this roast over at Prairie Lights Bookstore. And you know, I've watched footage of that night, and I loved your entrance when you came in and you claimed that you were late because because you were stopped at a four-way intersection and everyone was just waving at each other to go first. That's one of the things that makes Iowa great, is that everyone is really polite and really nice.
No, I mean, really, I mean.
But it's funny.
Well, I went just to check it out because it was the first time that it had happened here, when there was, I think it was last tax day, I don't know, last April, there was a Tea Party rally on the Ped Mall, and I went kind of because I'd seen footage, you know, in other places with growling and screaming and yelling, but everybody was so polite. It was such a great Iowa. It's like, well, I don't agree with you, and that's all I have to say about that. I mean, not quite as sedate, but no, the roast was great fun. I didn't have anything to do with organizing it. That was all Matt Steele and Little Village. He's the publisher of Little Village. But they asked me to host, which is a great honor and great fun to do. But I mean, never mind my just, you know, introductory kind of shtick and, you know, intermediate. But everybody, we had a tremendous amount of great submissions from all quarters, young folks, old folks, whatever, and we judged them all blindly. They were just numbered, and we sat and just read, and we tallied up the votes, and everything was just spot on hilarious, you know. So that. People talk about this being the city of literature because, you know, of course, the university and the prestigious writers workshop. There's funny and smart and great writing people here who are, you know, plumbers, or they work at a daycare center, or I don't know what they do. We're very fortunate. A lot of them submit stuff to Little Village magazine, which makes it just a great publication. But so that, you know, you don't have to be officially affiliated with this or with that, because there's wit here. I mean, you know, the dry Iowa wit has caught me unawares. I remember it was after the flood, and my good friend Ofer's house, unfortunately, was washed away, and we were there. I spent a lot of time. We had to gut it down to like studs and concrete, and some guy who was helping there, he very calmly, he handed me a can of that, like, you know, expansion foam. He's like, "Yeah, there's a crack over there, you better fill it." And he was so, and I looked over, and they bust out laughing, you know, like, what is that gonna do now? The house is washed away, pal. But he was so calm about it, like, "Here, you better," you know. So I mean, there is a certain humor of Iowa that is, you know, I'm no ethnologist or what. I can't say like if it's distinct to Iowa or Iowa City or what, but you know, there's smart, intelligent people and funny people from all quarters.
Yeah.
So
I really find that there's just a lot of highly educated folks that are doing all kinds of sorts of things. And when I asked you, you know, where do you think we should sit down and talk? And you said, well, let's sit at the Deadwood, you know, because, you know, there's a lot of great conversations that happen in the pubs. They're
Yeah.
not all happening.
You
in
know,